even if you think government can do good, that it's better that local government try to do good rather than federal government try to do good. And I think that's what your points reinforce.
I agree with Professor Berman, but let's take this, let's look at this for a minute from a 30,000-foot view, okay? Because here's what we're talking about policy-wise. Americans have come to the place where they say government has to solve this problem. And state and local government isn't equipped or isn't financed. Everybody wants to go to the feds, and the feds will gladly gather up whatever power the states and local governments will give them. Okay, we all know that, especially members of this organization. But the Fed can't operate on the local level. They can't target things like local law enforcement can. So instead what they have to do, and again I get back to this word shortcut that I used before, they have to take shortcuts. They have to identify what we as federal prosecutors used to refer to as the poster child. Because we have to send a message as a former prosecutor. We have to discourage this kind of conduct. We have to hold Henry Fisher and his company out as an example for all to see that if you get caught up in doing this kind of stuff, you are going to pay a very dear price. And the hope is, because that's all the authority and influence that the federal government is going to have. The hope is that, first of all, you do it correctly, and they obviously did not do that here. But you hope that message, like a pebble in the pond, resonates out throughout the country and discourages this kind of behavior. It's incredibly inefficient, but it is what it is.
I would only say as a follow-up to that, too, is that this creep away from federalism, I think, really began in earnest in the mid-'80s with the war on drugs. Yeah. And one thing drove that is that the locals wanted to be involved, the counties wanted to be involved, county prosecutor's office. They didn't have the budgets, they didn't have the money, and so they ended up deferring to the feds, or they began becoming parts of task forces, federal task forces, so that they didn't have to expend those kinds of monies. It's a shame to say, but I think that inevitable movement began in the mid-'80s as a result of counties not having money, states not having money, and relying upon Uncle Sam, who can print their own money if they have to. Unfortunately, that trend has not stopped.
Now, in defense of Mike, they sent a lot of money his way, but he did it right.
I gave it back.
Well, he hired smart, good prosecutors to spend that money.
And the last piece that I'd emphasize this, and this is something that I spend a lot of time focused on in class and encourage everybody here to take away, is these are all connected, right? When you say, you know what, let's give the feds more power to go after the sex offender. Right, so that's the sort of the latest popular one, right? We have a national sex offender database, and yes, we need to get sure, and only the feds can take care of crime on the internet, because that crosses borders and all of that. Let's give them more money, let's give them more power. It's a unique problem, that's fine. But if you don't build in there a set of understandings, look, that's when your power needs to stop. That's all we want you to do, the things that you're uniquely able to do well. Then you get big budgets. Lots of people who turn to them as, well, solve my next problem, and solve my next problem, and solve my next problem. And I'll give you another good example of this. It's going on right now, right? You all, another famous case, whether you want to call them rogue prosecutors or not at the federal level, they prosecuted this woman, Lori Drew, who was involved in this cyberbullying, where the poor girl that she sort of targeted ended up killing herself. And everyone looked at that case, oh, she's terrible, isn't that awful? To me, I look at the case, the state prosecutor said, you know what? We don't think this is a crime. We don't see anything we can prosecute here. Our state laws don't allow us, as they're currently written, to do anything about this case. In march the feds, you know, on the white horse, aren't we great? And they came up with a theory of prosecution that, as I read the papers, have turned all of us into criminals anytime we post on a website and don't use our full name and social security number. And yet, that's where we see this instinct, you know, driven to some extent, not just by, you know, the crime of the day story, but even the entertainment weeklies and, you know, the things that don't seem like they're creating our structure to lead us to think, oh, crime first, rather than taking a different approach to dealing with serious problems, but problems that, again, are part of what create an environment that lead to the kind of experiences that Mr. Fisher had to endure.
Great. Well, listen, we need to get on with our days. It is time for the thank yous. I want to thank our panelists for joining us today. It's been very informative.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And yes, absolutely. I want to thank... Oh, yeah, that's right, John. Yes, absolutely. It comes to that time of the program. John is going to be over signing books for those that like to purchase more books. Let me also then, as long as we're talking about it, the Buckeye Institute is a nonprofit, tax-exempt organization. If you think we do good work, or if you would like to find out more about us, please fill in your email address, and we'll keep you in touch through our weekly emails. We need the support of private citizens. We're an organization that neither seeks nor do we accept tax dollars to advocate for freedom and limited government here.